All right, here, 7th graders. We're ready for test time. We're going through this review. Even when you have multiple choice, I need you to get into the habit of showing your work. Yes, you've got a calculator that you can use, but I still need you to show your work. All right, take a look at question number 1. Find two ratios that are equivalent, meaning equal value, to 57/60ths. Well, if you get this in simplest form, which you can do on your calculator, or just simply notice that each of these are divisible by 3, you'll get 19/20ths for your fraction in simplest form. Now, when you look at that, I see this is an option in A and B. This is messed up in C. They inverted it. And 57/20, no, it's 57/60. You've narrowed it down this far. You know what? You don't even have to do much more math. Look at B. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. Well, that can't be. That would not be equivalent to this where the numerator is smaller. Your choice has to be A. The other way you can look at it too is if you double both 57 and 60, you would come up with the second fraction. So, number 1 is A. Number 2, tell whether these two fractions form a proportion. There are a lot of ways you can do this. One way is fraction way. Get them both in simplest form. 16/80ths is the same as 1/5. 6/20ths is the same as 3/10. These are not equal to each other. That's one way to say no. A second way would be take each of these and turn them into a decimal. 16/80 as a decimal is 2/10. 6/20ths as a decimal is 3/10. Those are not equal. No. Finally, to test when something's a proportion, you can test the cross products and see if those indeed are equal to each other. And when you do that, 16 times 20 is 320. 80 times 6 is 480. There's no way those are equal. So regardless of which way you do it, 1, 2, or 3, the answer is no. Show me your work. This multiple choice question will be worth 2 points because of that. Number 3, Sam earns this much money a week, Alex earns that much money a week. Are their salaries proportional if Sam works 40 hours a week and Alex only works 25? So you need to take Sam here, this is the money and the hours, and see what he comes up with for a unit rate. It turns out that Sam ends up making $19 an hour. Okay? Now you need to do the same thing for Alex. Alex earned $475 for 25 hours of work. What is his hourly rate or the unit rate? He also ends up with $19 an hour. So, yes, indeed, their salaries are proportional. They're earning the same rate. Number 4, a factory worker can package 240 games in 20 minutes. How many can he package per minute? So this is just asking me, take these two and divide. 240 games, 20 minutes is how many games in 1 minute? You know, you can either cross multiply or just simply unit rates just mean divide those two. And you should get exactly 12, which is A. Now, is it bothering you that you're getting all these A's in a row? Fear not, the next one won't be. Although it does say estimate, okay? Estimate the unit rate. Now, you do have a calculator at your disposal, so you could take 327 students over 11 classes and get a unit rate that way. Or, estimating, you'd think, well, gosh, this is around 330 students, and that's really close to maybe 10, or you could leave it at 11 students, and you would end up, or 11 classes, I mean, and you would end up with about C. All the rest of these are so far away, this is the most logical choice. Last but not least on this page, you are out to be the smart shopper here. What's the best buy? We have the 10-ounce box here or the 14-ounce box here. Just remember, bigger isn't always better. This is what we need to check. Always put the price on the top. So I'm going to say $1.88 for 10 ounces versus the $2.96 for 14 ounces. Calculate each of these to see what you come up with. On this one, the small box, you get 0.188, so about 18.8 cents per ounce. This one, you're going to end up with a little over 21 cents per ounce. So which is the best buy? Believe it or not, the smaller box is actually cheaper per ounce. So for number 6, you should choose B. Show me the work. That's what I'm going to look for. Alrighty, turn the page. Here we go. Taylor runs for exercise. She has run 28 miles in the past 6 days. Now it says, how many feet does she run per day? Well, first of all, let's just figure out how many miles per day. Let's do one thing at a time. So if I'm thinking in one day, I need to take 28 and divide by 6. And when I do that, I end up with around 4.6 miles in one day. Okay? Now, what I need to do is convert this 4.6 miles into feet. So 4.6 miles. I know that 1 mile happens to equal 5,280 feet. Okay? And what I'm looking for now is 4.6 miles is how many feet. And you know what you can do? Solve this by cross multiplying. Or if you just intuitively know, if I have 4.6 miles and I remember that every mile is 5,280 feet, take 4.6 times 5,280. Now, I'm looking at this right away, and I know D is nowhere near in the ballpark. B is way too high, because even if I said this is about 5 and this is about 5,000, I should get around 25,000. Both of these are fairly close, so then grab your calculator and you'll see that you should end up with A. All right, moving on to number 8. Johann visits 12 cities per week. At this rate, about how many cities would he visit in 1 year? So I happen to have this relationship, 12 cities here, and 12 cities in 1 week is how many cities in 1 year? Well, 1 year is how many weeks? Because I've got to do cities and weeks, so I've got to have weeks down here. This is going to turn into 52 weeks. 1 year's 52 weeks. Figure out what this one is. Basically, 1 times x equals 12 times 52. And crank that out and solve. And you should end up with C, 624. Look at number 9. Now this one's a little bit tricky, so we got to think about it a little bit, and there are a couple ways to approach it, okay? Gary can read 200 words per minute. Right away I'm thinking this is a rate. I'm going to write it down. 200 words in 1 minute. Then it says there are approximately 350 words on a page. Now that's a totally different rate, 350 words per page. But it's asking how many pages can you read in 2 hours. So I've got a lot of work to do here. And here's one way you can approach it. If I'm doing words in minutes, you could say, well, how many words could he read in 2 hours worth? And I know that each hour is 60 minutes, so I could do this part first. I could figure out how many total words is that, and then divide by 350, because that's how many pages I'll have. So this is one way to approach it. 1 times x equals 200 times 120. All right, when I do that, I think I end up with something like this number up here is, let me see, I think you get like 24,000 words. Okay, so in 2 hours now, he's reading 24,000 words. How does that equate to pages? Well, here's this rate, 350 words are on one page. So if I have 24,000 words, how many pages is that? This time, we're going to have to do some dividing, because I get 350 times x equals 1 times 24,000, and then I'm going to divide by 350. Divide by 350. And when you do that, you should end up with approximately 69. Should be D. Oops, I kind of made a mess on here, so let me rewrite this so that you can see what we're talking about. These two fractions, 8/14 and 56/98. You look at this and we're asking, are these two proportional? Remember, there are three ways to check. One way, fractions. Second way, decimals. Third way, cross products, and see if it matches. All right, if you do it fraction way, you'd simplify 8/14. That ends up being 4/7. 56/98. If you happen to notice that there's a factor of 7 in here, well, actually even higher than that, 14. When you get it in simplest form, you'll see that this actually is 4/7 and they are equal. If you do it decimal way, just crank it out and you show that those are equal. Or when you multiply these cross products, which get large, and I would highly recommend you use a calculator, you'd end up with the same thing. So actually, number 10 should be A. Yes, they are. But show me some work. If you just give me the answer, you're going to lose some points. All right, next, solve this. So here's where we're going to utilize our cross products to solve. Or you might be able to take a look at this and say, gosh, to get from 7 to 70, I multiply by 10. And you could figure out that it's supposed to be A. But I need you to show me work. And algebraically, this is what I want you to do. W times 70 has to equal 7 times 12 3/10. And then you're going to divide both sides by 70 so that you isolate your variable W. And when you do this, you should get 12 3/10. Show me the work. All right, number 12. Here's a recipe one. So you are making 8 dozen cookies, use 3 eggs. Stop right there. 8 dozen, 3 eggs. That's a rate, okay? How many eggs do you need to make 56 dozen cookies? Here's your unknown. And I'm just using x. Use whatever variable you want. Show me the work algebraically. 8 times x equals 3 times 56. Isolate the variable by dividing by x, or 8, sorry, and that gives you a 1x, or just x. And on this side, you should get 21. So that would be B. That's a lot of eggs. Wow. On number 13, it says the plans for a new house. The house is 20 inches wide by 24 inches long. I'm going to stop right there. Okay? 20 inches wide, 24 inches long. Not a nice rectangle. Now, the real house is going to measure, now it says 30 feet wide. So this is 30, and I'm in feet, and this is what I don't know. There are several ways to set up the proportion. You just decide one of the ways that works. So I tend to like to match up sides, 20 to 30. So I'm doing width to width from the baby one to the big one, as 24 is to x. Then go ahead and cross multiply. 20 times x is 30 times 24. Isolate the variable by dividing by 20, and then you can solve. And I get x is, let's see, 12, 3, I think you get 36. Does that look like one of your options? I believe it is. 36 feet. Now, that was just one way to set it up. Some people might turn this upside down and say the big one width-wise to the little guy width-wise has to equal the big length to the small length. that way is fine and dandy. You're going to get the same answer. Some people like to just match up the parts within the same shape. So on the baby rectangle here, or the small one, you could say width is 20, length is 24. On the big one, width is 30, length is, I don't know. Cross multiply and solve. You'll get the same answer. And on this one, it should be A, 36 feet. Alrighty. Turn the page over because now you're in the short answer section and you definitely need to show me work. Greta needs socks. Her mother can buy 6 pairs of socks for $305, 9 pairs for $470. Best buy, or the better deal. Please put the money on top. That's how we tell which one's cheapest, the best. Okay, $3.05 for 6 pair versus $4.70 for 9 pair. Now, as you work on this, then you're finding the unit rate. How much does it cost for 1 pair? When you do the division here, you get actually it's 0.508. Okay, so a little more than 50 cents for 1 pair of socks. And on this one, you end up with approximately 0.522 per 1 pair. So which one's cheaper? It looks like this one. So you should say the 6 pair package is cheaper. Okay, number 15. This one says an infant drinks about 26 ounces of milk a day. How many cups is that? And how many cups is that in 4 weeks? So this is kind of a 2-stage thing. And then, and then we got to do quarts. So let's do this. 26 ounces, fluid ounces, in 1 day. Okay? Now, I need you to do cups, and then we have to change this into weeks, specifically 4 weeks. Well, let's take a look at that. 26 ounces in 1 day. Can we turn that into cups? Do you remember what your conversion thing is? I know that 26 ounces turns into, or I should say there's 8 fluid ounces in 1 cup. Well, let's see here. You know, let's see, how many cups in 4 weeks? Do you want to do the 4 weeks first since I have this written this way? 4 weeks is how many days? 7 days a week, so this would be 28 days, which is the same as 4 weeks. Okay, so now let's figure out what this missing one is. So I get 1 times x is 26 times 28. Okay, and I calculate that out with my calculator. All right, when I multiply that out, I end up with 728 ounces. Okay, or fluid ounces, I guess I should call that. Now, if you look back at your chart, when we have ounces and cups, if you remember how we were doing our conversions, basically we want to know, I know that 8 ounces was the same as 1 cup. And so I'm asking 728 ounces is how many cups? Or we just said if you looked at our chart, if you're going from ounces to cups, you're just going to divide by 8. And that's exactly what's going on here, because you get 8x equals 1 times 728. And then what you have to do is come back here and divide by 8 and divide by 8. And you end up with, let me get this out of the way here. I think we end up with x is 91. So your answer here about how many cups does the baby drink in 4 weeks, okay, she or he drinks 91 cups in 4 weeks. All right. Now, we're not done yet because now I'm saying now that you had 91 cups, how many quarts is that? Okay, so you can either think of a conversion where you want to set up a proportion and you could say 91 cups is how many quarts? I don't know, but in looking at my conversion, I know it takes 4 cups to make 1 quart. and then you could go from here. Or if you look at your chart and you just realize you just have to divide by 2 to get to pints and divide by 2 again to get to quarts, you can do it that way. 91 times 1 equals x times 4. Divide both sides by 4. There you go. 91 divided by 4 ends up being approximately, let me see here, 22.75 quarts. And that was in 4 weeks worth. Okay? All right, number 16. It says you're comparing Eric's math test and his history test. Okay? So what might be helpful is saying here's math, where he got 18 out of 21. On the history test, he got 55 out of 64. Are these proportional? And it says please use cross products to determine this. So I want you to test it this way. Is 18 times 64, is that really equal to 21 times 55? Well, here's what happens. And boy, this is close, because 18 times 64 is 1,152, and 21 times 55 is 1,155. Nope, but that's close. Okay, so you should say no, they are not proportional. Next one, number 17. In her catering business, Carly usually estimates that 8 pounds of meat will feed about 48 people. Okay, so think about it. So if she has 8 pounds, that's for 48 people. It says how many pounds of meat if she's expecting 288 people. Oops, hold on, I almost made a big mistake there. People are down here. 288 people. Okay, let's cross multiply. 8 times 288 has to equal 48 times x. And then when I isolate my variable by dividing by 48. And then you should be able to calculate this out. And the cool thing is you actually end up with 48. Now, what is the answer? How many pounds? So she needs 48 pounds of meat. There we go. Next one. Hey, there's a typo in here. It says here, Mr. Kaiser, here, Mr. Young, here, Mr. Young. So will you just change this first one's name? That's just a little typo. Okay. So, as you read through that, we've got a couple of stages we want to get to. So we want to figure out how long it's going to take him to grade all of his students' papers, and figure out, first of all, how many papers that is. Okay? He has 33 students. Okay? He has 6 classes. So you can think of it proportionally, or you can just multiply this thing. Okay? If you take 33 times 6, that gives you 198 papers that he has to correct. Okay? 198 papers. If his rate is 8 papers per 1 day, our job is to figure out how long is it going to take him to do 198 papers. How many days is that? So go ahead and cross multiply. You get 8 times x equals 1 times 198. Then we'll have to divide by 8. When you solve this one, you end up with 24.75. You're not done yet, though. Ask what we've got. Okay? It says how long, and we're measuring in days, so it's going to take this many days. But the directions here also said to the nearest tenth of a day. So you should say, okay, it will take him around 24.8 days. And we should write that out then, okay? Mr. Young will need 24.8 days to correct. 19's kind of tricky. That's a special challenge one. Okay, so let's figure out the first part. A writer wrote 140 pages in 16 days. Okay, so this is a rate. In fact, why don't you just, well, let's say this. It says at this rate, how many more days would it take her to finish a 440-page novel? Now, if you just jump and put the 440 here, and then I don't know the days, I mean, you can certainly solve it that way, but let me just show you what's going to happen. You have 140 times x, 16 times 440, and then you're going to have to divide each side by 140. Okay, so as I grab my calculator to do that one, and I get 16 times 440 divided by 140, I get this for my answer. I get x there is going to be 50 point, what does it say? I guess I've got like 0.2857, like that. So I'm thinking around 50.3 days. But hold on. This is total to do the entire 440-page novel. Okay? They've already written 16 days worth. So to answer the question, because it says how many more days will it take to finish, you have to take 50.3 and subtract 16, because we already did this much. This is what it's going to take to do the total. So let's subtract and see what's left. And you should get 34.3 days is how many more days of writing she will need. So you can say it will take 34.3 days to finish. Period. Perfect. 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 Alrighty. There is one last problem on the back side. Yes, I know there's this extra credit. I'm not going through that with you. Diana and Luis are cutting, oops, this is supposed to be a T, cutting out paper elephants for their teacher. Diana finished 18 out of the 20 she was given. Diana, D, 18 over 20. Luis has just finished 20 out of his 32. Express each student's progress as a ratio. So let's get it in simplest form. This one is 9/10. This one looks like it's 5/8. Okay, divide by 4, divide by 4. All right, so it says express it as a ratio. Okay, I just did that, 9/10 and 5/8. Tell whether they are proportional. Nope. 9/10, oops, 9/10 does not equal 5/8. Not at all. Show or explain in words how you determined your answer. So now you really have to tell me in words. So here's what I'm going to say. I put each fraction in simplest form. They are not equal. Therefore, I know that they won't be proportional. Okay? So I suppose I should say, instead of they are not equal, I could also say they are not proportional. Proportional. Okay, now I've answered the question. That will take you through the test that you'll be taking. It looks exactly like this, just different numbers. Study hard and good luck.